So good to see everyone here. I suppose that there's some old friends here, but for those who don't know you, what would be like some nuggets about you that if people knew this, they would feel they'd know you the whole life?
Oh, how many nuggets do we have time for? No, but I am an engineer by training, always been fascinated by technology, working with lots of different companies in kind of more the deep tech in the beginning, and then moving into more kind of e-commerce online businesses. Joined Kinnevik almost 7 years ago. So that was kind of my first job as an investor. I am a father of 3 and a lovely dog.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What's the name of the dog?
Jackson.
Jackson.
It's a beagle.
Fabulous. Oh.
Jackson Beagle.
I'm seeing Natalie smiling. You already have a friend in the audience.
Yeah.
I think that for us Swedes, Kinnevik is a very like household name, but for those who are not familiar with Kinnevik, is there anything about the background of the type of organization it is you're CEO of that is good for everyone's context?
Yeah, I think it's in Sweden, I think it's more of an institution. It's one of those family-owned businesses, originally founded in 1936. So having the type of founders and shareholders of flesh and blood. But today we're a publicly listed business. We've always been known for reinvent ourselves. So instead of staying in the sectors forever, kind of reshaping the portfolio, which you know, and I think that's probably the most unique thing with Kinnevik. But lots of legacy and history, but also in terms of challenging the norm and being in the forefront.
And I think that, since you came in as CEO, you've really done that. We've been really impressed about the pivot you've done of the portfolio. But could you tell everyone a little bit more just about what it is that you've
Of course,
done?
yeah, but I think it's less about me personally, because it's probably the 3rd or the 4th time Kinnevik is doing this reinvention of itself. In the 80s, the former CEO and late Jan Stenbeck, he basically transformed the business into a media and telecom investor. In 2000, his daughter Christina Stenbeck, still the lead shareholder of Kinnevik, she kind of started to invest in e-commerce businesses. And 7 years ago, we decided to yet again transform the business. And what we have done literally is to distribute value to shareholders, both in stocks, so our shares in companies that we owned, more stable and kind of legacy assets, and cash to a value of almost 9 billion euros, so 88 billion SEK, which was more than the entire market cap at the time we started that transformation. And during the same time, we have also built up a new portfolio within 3 sectors. One is climate tech, where we have a number of exciting businesses. But this has, of course, been super challenging and painful, because it's really to kind of give birth to a new portfolio while you're trying to take care of the legacy, if you will.
Yeah, and I'm very curious about diving into that, like the pain, if you will, soon as well. But just with the background of it, tell us more about like the why. Was it really like, okay, this is the DNA of the type of organization we are, so we need to renew ourselves? Like, what is new? Okay, it's like climate and health is something that has potential, or like, tell us more about.
If you come to the core of Kinnevik and why we did this, is that we think we are good investors when it takes to take, risk, long-term risk, on business model that has not yet been proven or developed. We've done that in the telecommunications, as I said, pioneers within e-commerce, and we did it again 7 years ago within healthcare, within some type of software businesses, and also climate tech. And I think in order to do so, you need to have a clear focus of investing behind the best founders and the business models you believe long term, and doing that with an exposure that is mainly to stable publicly listed businesses, as we were in kind of 2017, is not ideal. So we wanted to shrink first to then again build Kinnevik to be something great again. And we have done so. I call it painful, because it has been more like doing a heart surgery or transplantation during a marathon on a course that is kind of invented by the guys who designed the Super Mario Bros. kind of course. Like there's a mushroom, there's a cactus, and you have to jump over this pitfall. And it's like it's been massive, of course, with the pandemic, geopolitical, uncertainty and so forth. So we've done a few great things during these 6.5 years. Fantastic companies that we've backed that has generated a lot of returns and exits, but also our share of mistakes, of course. And to be fair, difficult for the market because we're a public listed entity to fully understand because we have basically gone from something to something else. And doing that in a public environment with a kind of stock that is trading on a daily basis, it's difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that for the Swedish audience would know that your stock, your share price has also really been hit. I think it's down like 30% this year. So just like very curious to hear your read on that. Is that because, I mean, of course you're doing something, you do a few bad bets and that is what shows, or is it that people don't understand the portfolio, or is it even deeper that what you're trying to do is too long term to really be supported?
Yeah, I think not to be defensive. I mean, again, we have done a few mistakes, and of course, the market is punishing us for those mistakes. But I also think it's the general sentiment we're in. We're down 30%, yes, in a short period of time, but we're down 70% from the top in 2021. And in 2021, we're the best performing large cap stock in the Stockholm Stock Exchange, right? With a fantastic return and all-time high numbers. And the market were not long-term either at that time, but people actually thought that this was what you wanted exposure to, right? And we're a publicly listed stock that gives exposure to fast-growing tech businesses. That was great in 21, not so great in 22 and onwards. And I think that the short-termism of the public market is an issue when you do something that is completely new, whether it's transforming your company or you try to explain a novel business model. Why? Because almost 60% of the stocks being traded, take an example in the US, over 60% of the stocks being traded, of the funds managing stocks being traded, are incentivized by daily share price movements. Now, how the hell am I supposed, or anyone else that are trying to do something long term, navigate in a market that actually will look at your performance on a daily kind of result? I think it's very difficult. So for us, although I have a lot of respect for all shareholders that have seen value going down, I think you need to be a little bit more granular. You need to understand the strategy, and you need to ask yourself, do I think that these guys are building something that can generate value long term? And if yes, I like this exposure. So it's a perfect buy opportunity for all you listening.
And I think that there are quite a lot of people in this audience who may be running startups, maybe thinking about the long-term vision of, I may be IPO'd at some point. But I could also imagine like being a CEO during this time. Like you mentioned in the beginning that you do have like a family in the background.
Yeah.
Who, like, has that helped? Help you stay on course? Or
yeah, I think being long-term for us means a couple of things. It's not, a lot of people call themselves long-term. Why do we structurally have an advantage? Firstly, as I said, we have owners of flesh and blood. These people, they don't control basically the AGM, the votes, but they have a lot of influence, right? And they are here for generations, not quarters or weeks or days. So that's kind of long-term on a big level. When it comes to us being publicly listed, it means that we don't have any fund maturities or kind of durations or limits that we need to optimize in terms of exits. So when we back a company, we don't care if it takes 3 years or 30 years for that company to actually generate value, as long as we keep having high conviction and the company performs in different ways, right? So that long-term ability has given us opportunities to invest in sectors and invest in companies that many others, both in the public market but also in private funds, have not been able to back. And that, I think, is partly unique, and it gives us a different type of currency when we meet companies today.
Tell us more about that. What have you been able to invest in that you think would be
I
different
mean, I think
for others?
climate is one good example, right? I think we have been backing, within our climate portfolio, we have both more industrial applications that will struggle a long time before they can prove any clear revenue or great margins. You need to believe that the technology that they're building and the milestones that they're hitting, hopefully, will lead to that, right? And in order to have that mindset and being less worried about the exit horizon in 5 to 7 years, gives us the ability to back these businesses. Secondly, we all know that even businesses that has a shorter feedback loop, where you can actually measure performance on a weekly or daily basis, might struggle in periods. So if I take one of our Barcelona-based companies called TravelPerk, when they were coming into COVID, they went from some revenue to negative revenue. I wasn't teaching in school that you could actually have negative revenue in a business, but they had, because they were kind of cashbacks to the customers, right? And we saw that that was a great opportunity for Kinnevik to continue to invest behind these great founders and the great team in order to invest in product features and onboard new logos from company, although they were not using the service at that time, but being prepared for the rebound after the pandemic. That happened. And today the company is actually doing better than ever. Really smart product developments, really smart geographical expansions, and something that we would define as a core asset in our portfolio. And they did not perform at all. So from an external perspective, it's suicide to back something with negative revenue. Long term, it was the right thing to do.
I think I also heard that your investor day recently were saying that, well, a lot of founders and VCs are fundamentally misaligned. Was this what you were referring to then, or are there any more dimensions to that?
No, I wouldn't say that maybe a lot of founders and VCs are misaligned. I'm just saying that some of the restrictions that you find in the typical venture and growth VC or fund might misaligned. And what we have seen in our businesses, without pointing any fingers, is that we have taken the opportunity over the last 2 years to also increase our ownership by buying secondaries, so existing shares from investors that might not have the same long-term vision as the founders or us. And we have basically then, as you can say, cleaned up the cap table, focused our investments around these founders, and made it possible for these funds to demonstrate liquidity in a difficult period, while we actually saw this as an opportunity to accrete. So I think it can be so that there are misaligned incentives because of this, and that we turn into our opportunity or to the possibility to actually do great investments.
And digging into that of like potential misalignment a bit more, because I think something that a lot of people have mentioned from last year's Impact Week was a man called Daniel Smachtenberger who was here, and he had such an interesting reflection on that. Quite a lot of the challenges we have in the world today, they didn't come about because someone particularly wanted them to happen. It's very hard to find a person who says that I would love climate change, or like I would love people to be obese, or I would love people to be poor. Like that is not how it works. It's not someone who says that I want this. But we have a society where a lot of people want something, where this is the externality or the consequence of it, and therefore we end up creating societies that no one of us wanted, but because our incentives were not aligned to actually solve this along the way. So just super curious, in your role, what have you experienced in terms of, have there been such occasions where you felt that there's something I would love to do, but what it means to be a high-performing CEO, a high-performing company, that it's a struggle to actually get to do that?
I think it's definitely true, but I have to admit that we have been less bothered by that, hence the share price reaction.
Yeah.
We have taken the difficult decisions of backing companies that do not give us any credibility in today's stock market. Still, we do it. So as an investment firm, you're trading at, you have a share price and you have kind of your NAV, net asset value, or portfolio value. And at the high times of 21, we were trading at a 40% premium to our NAV, meaning that people paid more for our stock than we thought the value of the underlying portfolio had, right? Today, we're at like 45, 50% below that value. And partly it's because we have been backing companies that cannot show short-term proof points. So if I zoom into the climate portfolio, we have businesses like Sologen in the US within chemical engineering, or Stegra in Sweden, developing green steel. And those businesses we need to follow carefully, of course. Are they delivering according to plans? I mean, do we see the milestones being hit? If not, how can we help them? Do we have the right co-investors around the table? Because we cannot simply fund those giant projects ourselves, right? So all these things we need to do. But it's very difficult to say today that it will work. So we're taking that type of risk. Some companies have more kind of commercial backup with off-take agreements and such, but still there will be execution risks. And we know that it will not help us, in any way to invest in these businesses. But we think with the right investor base that we have, right shareholders, and the right team internally, and of course backing the right companies, we will generate value over time. And I think you need to have structures that allow you to take those difficult decisions. And what I think is scary is not really about the stock markets. That's on a political level. I think today the political landscape has been more short-term than ever, where we actually need long-term decisions that actually span over several mandate periods. So I think that's more of a philosophical question.
Yeah. Is that the main thing you would change? Like, what would make it even easier for you to be able to make the long-term bets you would like to be able to do? Is it more long-termism in the political landscape, or anything?
Of course, we can't just, kick the can and say profits will come. So we also need to balance this and demonstrate that some of these companies in the portfolio actually can generate revenue, can generate profits, and then I'm sure that the kind of capitalists will do the job and more money will flow into that direction over time. And that's our job, and I think partly our responsibility to demonstrate that it's actually much more than just a vision or something we do from a moral standpoint, but it actually can generate profits. So I pride ourselves, but other investors as well, backing these, but I also think it's up to us now and all the companies out there to actually prove that this is a good business. Because if not, it won't, survive. Because I don't think we can, in a short period of time, change the whole financial structure within. We just need to accept it, right? So climate change is something that is more urgent than trying to change the entire society. So we need to use the model that we're in, that ecosystem, and provide real profits in these projects.
And for everyone sitting here who are thinking that, yes, I want to do a Georgi and I want to do a Kinnevik as well and pivot my portfolio even more, what would you say are things that people can copy with pride that you have done? And what could be things that this wise in hindsight, like don't do this?
There's a long list, so we can have that chat afterwards as well. But I think one thing is do not underestimate communication. I think even though we were trying hard to explain this already in 2019, when we disclosed our plan, we said this company will be changed, we will stop paying dividends, we will do this and that. Market forgets, media forgets, and it has taken us so much more kind of efforts and focus in trying to get that story clear. And doing everything at once is maybe not always the best thing to do when you try to kind of get that story out. That's one thing. The good thing is probably that you are very true to your North Star and vision. And even though you are kind of hammered in the media, or if you get criticism, you need to go back and you need to ask your board, your lead shareholders, yourself, of course, is there anything we can do to optimize, to improve, do less of, do more of? That's all good. But is there a reason for changing the course? And if not, stick to it. Because I think the worst thing is if you start to actually go back and forth on your vision, then you're doomed. And it's very, very easy to, as a founder, I suppose, because I've seen that, you have several investors on the cap table with different time horizons. They might be all good, but just the change in time horizons or the difference make them, you want to do different things. And to go back really to what's the core purpose here of the business, what are we about to do, and then just hold onto it and have a thick skin, I suppose.
Yeah, and on that direction, so Georgi, so I hope when you turn 80, we will sit here with a glass of old-fashioned each and have a toast for what you've accomplished during your career. When you look back then, what would be the things that you would say that this would really mean that I feel that I can celebrate?
I think, impact is a big word, right? But I think we really want to make, some true impact. And the way we can do it is to show that you can, with a commercial mindset, not only from a moral standpoint, but with a commercial mindset, back these type of founders that we have in our portfolio, not to say the least the climate portfolio, and do something good and still make money out of it. I think if that's what we can say, yes, it worked, and that has inspired other founders, other investors, I'm super proud.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming here today and sharing your experience. And we're very much looking forward to continue the conversation up in the speakeasy room. So anyone who would like to join us and ask follow-up questions to Georgi, you're super welcome to join. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.